Get ready, get set for the best movie and pop culture talk in the universe. It's the Good Brothers on Mercado Airwaves with your hosts, Alex Mercado and Mike Mercado.
Hello and welcome in, friends, to another edition of the Good Brothers here on Mercado Airwaves. I'm your host, Mike Mercado. I want to thank you so much for making us a part of your day on this 4th of July. Thank you all for joining us here on the Good Brothers. We are your middlemen between LA and New York City. I gave the Good Brother himself, Alex Mercado, the day off on this Independence Day. But we want to thank you all so much for letting us be a part of your holiday weekend. I hope each and every one of you is being safe and sound. On today's edition of the Good Brothers, it's going to be a loosey-goosey fun one because it is the holiday, because there is food to eat, beverages to drink, and stuff to watch, people to hang out with. We wanted to just get on the episode and talk a little bit about Loki. That's right, the God of Mischief himself. Episode 4, the Nexus event, hit Disney Plus this past Wednesday, and I wanted to give my thoughts on it. So before we get too crazy into it, make sure you're following us all over the universe. The show is on Twitter at Good Brothers Pod. I'm on Twitter at Mike M Media. You can follow the Good Brother on Twitter at Mercado21Alex. See the video version of the podcast on YouTube.com/Mercado Airwaves Network, and download us, like, rate, review, and share us on all major podcast platforms at Mercado Airwaves. With that, let's get right into it. Alex loved the episode. He wanted me to make sure he told each and every one of you that he absolutely adored this episode, his favorite episode of the series so far. And for me, it's the same thing. I thought it's the best episode of the series, the best episode since episode 1. I think 1 and 2 were really, really fun. I think 1 was the best episode. A lot of stuff just stuck with me. I hated episode 3. I thought episode 3 was a filler, was a waste of time. Great visuals, great action. You know, nothing cheap about it, nothing horrible about it. I thought it was, nothing came of it. And that is the total opposite of this episode. So I loved it. My favorite episode of the series, maybe my favorite episode of all the Disney Plus MCU shows that we've gotten. I really liked the first 3 episodes of WandaVision. There's a lot of stuff I liked in that series. A lot of set pieces and moments in Falcon and the Winter Soldier that I really enjoyed. But all in all, I loved episode 4 of Loki, the Nexus event. So with that, we'll get into spoilers just again to have some fun on this very loosey-goosey edition of the Good Brothers here on Mercado Airwaves. So first of all, I love that we get back to Owen Wilson's Mobius and Tom Hiddleston's Loki. That is the foundation, the backbone, everything on this series. Their dialogue, their chemistry. And this is a show that has some great characters, you know, like Hunter B-15 and Ravonna, and Sylvie, and there's a lot of great characters. But what you get from Owen Wilson and Tom Hiddleston is just top notch. So let's get a little bit, and we're gonna get into the spoilers now again, okay? So you've been warned, spoilers. Love the Lady Sith cameo of him getting hit in the crotch and getting punched, and you know, him having to live through a bunch of those moments over and over again. Even when there's some growth, he still gets kind of smacked around, both verbally and physically. So I love that cameo. Let's get into kind of the most important thing, in my opinion, about this episode, is the world building, the lore building of the MCU moving forward. Because you get to the Timekeepers, right? We're actually meeting the Timekeepers. And you see them. And you're like, well, first of all, none of them look like, you know, Kang the Conqueror. None of them look like Majors, right? Jonathan Majors, I believe his name is. Shout out to him in Lovecraft Country, which got canceled, by the way. We'll talk about that maybe next week when Alex gets back. But none of them look like him. And we're going through these moments, and we're gonna go out of order. I'm just speaking, and we're just a couple of old gals talking about the episode. So don't mind me kind of going over the place. But we're in this scene, and we find out that they're robots, and this whole fight scene happens, and we'll get into the major moment of this fight scene. But that in itself, because my entire, I guess, overall question of the series has been, well, we know there's a multiverse, right? Or at least that's where they're heading to. But in this series, the Timekeepers, the TVA, make it a thing to tell you that there's only one true timeline. And then there's all these different variants and whatnot, right? So if that's the case, what's real? What's not? Are we in a loop? Is Kang doing this? So this episode, I think to me finally broke all that. I think what we're now seeing is the TVA is being controlled by somebody else, whether it is Ravana, I forgot how you pronounce your name, but they say it 1,000 times. But I wonder if she's more involved, because she has that moment in the elevator with Sylvie when she says, well, why was I a variant? Why were you coming after me? And she's like, I don't even remember. And the callousness that Gugu does in that scene is fantastic. But how much does she know? Is she the one pulling the strings of this timeline or trying to make their version of what a proper timeline is? And now that we know that it's not those three lizards, I think we're gonna finally find out like who may be in charge. So what else I really liked about this episode is the Hunter B-15 scenes with Sylvie. Because I think what can happen in a lot of these shows is the hero can be like, that's not true, that's impossible. Shout out to Luke Skywalker. And like, it just prolongs the episode. It's like, no, you know what it's true? Let's just get there. Let's get to point B. Make it nice, make it like, enjoyable, but like, let's not drag this out, especially in such a short series. And that wasn't the case here. She's like, show me. I looked happy. Boom, it happens. Let's get it going. These guys are competent soldiers. They should be. And we get to the scene that I think shocked me more than anything we've seen in the MCU recently. And that's Mobius putting it together. Asking questions. Seeing that there's something going on. And that their character building, and that is what I loved about this episode, was they made their characters seem smart. That that they can absorb and look around and make rational decisions. And aren't just this weird character that everybody else sees what's going on and they're the last one to the party. That's not what happened in this episode. You saw that Mobius put things together and followed his gut because he's a good agent. They created good agents. And after the stuff hits the fan and we see that prune? Owen Wilson. After he's got this scene going on where he's like, why is this going on? I want to go back to my time. I want to go to his jet skis. And I legit had an audible moment. Like, oh my God, they did it. I didn't think they were going to do it. We'll get into the ramifications of that in just a little bit, because as much as I love that scene, in its pocket, in its own universe, what a great emotional string to pull. What a crazy moment. And the way they did it was so impactful, but it wasn't this whole big action scene. It just happened really fast in the middle of a sentence. You really didn't have time to really prepare for it. You weren't sure if they were going to go there, and they do it. And it meant something because Loki made this connection. We've made this connection, and he is the spirit of the show. Owen Wilson has captured everybody's heart in Loki. And the fact that the writers, the director, the story went there was great with a little time left. Because in an episode where Loki himself gets pruned, and then we see Sylvie kick the hell out of Ravana down, and then all the stuff happens with the timekeepers, it was what happened to Owen Wilson before they get on that elevator that was the most impactful thing that I've seen in the entire MCU run on Disney+. More than the Loki thing, more than all the stuff with Wanda and her kids. Anthony Mackie's character getting, his growth and then becoming Captain America was great. But like a single moment was that to me is the Mobius death scene. That was into the very end of the episode. And we get to the post-credit scene. And there's a post-credit scene, so if you missed it, get back. Spoilers for that if you're some reason you haven't seen around. But we knew that there's many Lokis, right? The variants. We've seen the pictures of them. Well, after Loki gets pruned and the episode ends and the post-credit happens, we see that he wakes up and he's like, am I in hell? And when he gets up, he sees all the different types of Lokis. Great visual, great scene, awesome to see it all play out how they look. But I'm going to be that guy. As awesome as that scene is, as much as we know that this was going to happen and what would have happened, it takes away from the death of Owen Wilson. Because we know he's going to come back. In theory, because we know pruning, unless, there's something special about Loki or whatnot, you go to these universes. Or you go to whatever purgatory this is. And maybe that scene where Mobius is in the office and there's all those different rings from the water or the scotch, that's different ones that have been pruned. So he's always figuring it out. But the idea that we had that emotional moment, that they went there, it kind of sucks that it was taken away so fast. But I see why they had to do it. And the payoff being, you've seen the crocodile, the old Loki, the young Loki. I'm interested in when we're going to see the presidential Loki. That maybe that's episode 5. But it was such a great death scene. The Loki death scene was great. And I think the post-credit, as fun as it is, kind of took away from it. But I'm interested. You guys let me know. What did you think? Do you think the post-credit scene was worth it? Did it take away from the death scenes? I'm on Twitter at Mike Media. Instagram, Mike Mercado Media. Be interactive with the show on Twitter at Good Brothers Pod. Let Alex know on Twitter at Mercado21Alex. So, finally, as we wrap up this 4th of July episode of The Good Brothers, a Loki episode 4 review, will Kang show up in this episode? Jonathan Majors, right, the actor. It's going to be interesting because everything is going to fall back onto Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. More than likely, right? I do think he's going to make an appearance. I do think he's going to have a little overarching thing. Maybe he'll have his Thanos treatment, but I don't think he's going to be a character. I think we've established who the characters are. We've seen the surprises now. And this post-credit scene was like the last, I think, big one. Far be it for me to get into the minds of these creators and Kevin Feige, but I think so close to the end, I think we're done introducing characters, especially a main bad guy. Episode 5, we'll finally get him. We'll see. We'll see how that plays out. But that was it, guys. Those were my thoughts. And I love this episode. This is the one thing that everybody kept saying. It's like, why wasn't it... What was it about the post-credit scene that just kind of took away from the episode? And it goes back to the MCU having, the fake deaths. And it takes away a little away from it. And the more and more you do this, and this is such a nerd thing, it's a nitpick thing, so, it doesn't take away from the episode, and it doesn't take away from the quality of work. I'm just talking about then, if they also want us to be engaged with the entire story and the universe, it takes away a little bit. You're just chipping it away. Like, how long until Robert Downey Jr. shows up properly? Not just in a cameo, or like properly as Robert Downey Jr. in the next Iron Man. Or Chris Evans as the next Captain America. Even with Anthony Mackie right now with the Shield. You know what I'm saying? Like, it takes away a little bit of it. And like Owen Wilson, going away episode 4 would have left such a mark for the entire series. But, counter to it, we get more of it. We get more Mobius and we get more Loki talking to each other. So that would be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. I going through the notes, love the cameo. I love the play at the end with the timekeepers. Very interested to see how far they go in with the variants. Maybe there's a revolution, or maybe they become more corrupt, and that is the army that goes on forward. But I'm interested to see if Kang is really part of this. Ravonna, maybe she's just a straight up bad guy in this entire series. Maybe she doesn't know how complicit she is, or maybe she's the one pulling all the strings in this particular story. How long is Sylvie going to be part of the MCU? Will they go there? See, all these questions, there's still a lot of stuff they got to talk about. But we are done talking today on this edition of The Good Brothers here on Mercado Airwaves. Thank you so much for making us a part of your day. If you are celebrating 4th of July, please be safe. Make sure you're following us all over the universe. I'm on Twitter at Mike Media, Instagram, Mike Mercado Media. You can follow The Good Brother on Twitter at Mercado21Alex and on Instagram at Mercado2121. Follow the show on Twitter at Good Brothers Pod. See the video version of the podcast on Facebook.com/Mercado Airwaves and on YouTube.com/Mercado Airwaves Network. While you're subscribing there, subscribe to us wherever you get your favorite podcasts, all major podcast platforms. at Mercado Airwaves. Support us at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves and check out our swag at teespring.com/Mercado Airwaves. Please enjoy your 4th of July weekend. Enjoy our movies. Take care of yourself. Take care of each other. For the good brother himself, Alex Mercado, I'm the good brother, Mike Mercado. We will see you next time here on the Good Brothers on the Mercado Airwaves Network.
Thanks for joining us here on The Good Brothers, here on Mercado Airwaves.